pendejos! Let him rip you apart! That! Almost getting a treat. Am I good or am I good?
What up gamers, it's Epic here. I'm back with another video on the channel. It's been a little while, but we're back because I'm finally ready to release my Mordecai Vault Hunter mod for Borderlands 3. I know that a lot of you have been waiting a long time for this, and it's finally here. After a recent video where I showed off a Mordecai player model mod made by the one and only Sir Galahad 172, I did ponder the question of whether or not it would be worth trying to make Mordecai actually playable inside of Borderlands 3. And the response to this was overwhelming, and I thought, okay, well, sure. I've never tried something like this before. We did bounce around the idea of custom Vault Hunters in Wonderlands Redux, but I had never actually tried it. So I gave it a little whirl, and honestly I think it came out a lot better than I thought. Now, just to temper your expectations a little bit for this mod, this is purely a proof of concept. I wanted to see if it was at all plausible to make a custom Vault Hunter inside of Borderlands. What would it take? What would need to be done? Where would we fall short and where would we exceed? I figured that it would be a good idea to try Mordecai because we could go off of Zane, which already has the Mordecai player model mod made by Sir Galahad, and also Mordecai's action skill from Borderlands 1 is basically Zane's Sentinel drone, and I figured it would be easy enough to turn that into Bloodwing, or now rather Talon, and get what is close to, at least very close to, Mordecai's playstyle from Borderlands 1. Now, just to clarify, this only has the blue tree for Mordecai here. I didn't want to do every single tree, mainly because another one of the ideas I had in the future was to turn the purple tree into Wilhelm from the pre-sequel, and I kind of wanted to dedicate each tree to a new Vault Hunter, so I wanted to stick purely with one tree for each one I do, and I chose the blue tree for Mordecai. Almost every single skill in here is brand new. I didn't want to do a complete remaster of Mordecai from Borderlands 1 because he's already there, you know, we already still play that to this day. I wanted to do something a little more innovative and actually improve upon and also add new skills to his arsenal that he might not have had before. Now, there is a ton of references to things from the past Borderlands games and also Mordecai as well in here. This could be anything from the names of skills or even what they do, or even the augments for Bloodwing, like the corrosion augment in which Talon beams out corrosion. Now, of course, talking about Talon, it's important to note, like, look, this isn't Mordecai and Bloodwing, because by this point in the storyline, Bloodwing is of course dead, and I wanted that to be represented in the mod. So now we have Talon. It does use Talon's actual model from Borderlands 3 for the action skill. Unfortunately, it A-poses because I couldn't actually animate it, but I figured it was better than nothing, and we could still have Mordecai and Talon in the battlefield. And yes, that is actually Talon. Look how beautiful he is. Now, quick interlude here. We'll get back to how this plays in just a few minutes. First of all, I want to show you how to install the Mordecai mod, because it's very important that you know this. Now, if you're familiar with any of my pack mods, it's as simple as grabbing them off of my Nexus mods, which I'll have linked in the description down below, navigating to your pack folder, which is clearly outlined on the mod page, and dropping it in. And it's no different for this mod. You'll grab my Mordecai mod and put it into your pack folder, but you are going to need another mod, which I will link below, and that is Sir Galahad's Mordecai replacement mod. The character model is not included in this mod for the main reason that I was not just going to steal someone's mod, put it in mine, and then re-upload it. That's not something I wanted to do, and I didn't even want to reach out to Galahad and ask to do that either. Instead, I'd rather you guys go to their mod and download it and give them that rub and then put their mod in your game. So you are going to need those two mods. You'll need my Mordecai mod and the Mordecai character model mod from Sir Galahad. When you do install the Mordecai player model, it's going to look really bugged out at first, and while Galahad does mention this on the mod page, I'll just show you how to fix that here. So you're going to go to the new use station, you're going to make sure that your head is set to default Zane, and that your body is set to default Zane. Now you're going to go to the skin, you're going to select the Crimson Trim skin, and then go to the colors and set everything to black, and it's going to look just like Mordecai. If you don't, it's going to be all bugged out, and yeah, you really don't want that, as you can see right here. And I would also recommend going into your options, going to your sounds, and then turning off player callouts so that when you're fighting stuff, you don't hear Zane talking. Now, the reason why this mod does not include audio of Mordecai is because almost every sound in Borderlands 3, and I'm pretty sure every single sound for that matter in Borderlands 3, is hashed. This basically means every single sound is serialized into a whole bunch of numbers, and we can't actually find individual sounds. So I can't just find every single Zane sound in the matter of minutes and then replace them over the course of a week. Rather, I'd have to find every single Zane sound over the course of months and replace them over the course of months, which I'm just not gonna do. There is quite literally hundreds of thousands of sounds in Borderlands 3, believe it or not, and yet that is a ton of work, and it's just not worth it for a proof of concept like this. Now finally, before we get into a little bit of Mordecai gameplay, there is one more thing I want to do, and that's thank Sheriff Pirek, who I commissioned for the artwork for Mordecai's action skill. I wanted to make sure that Talon fit the art style of other skills, especially because this is a Zane replacement, so that if you go and put on like Digiclone for example, both of those action skill icons look the same. It matches the BO3 art style, and that was crucial. That's something I conveyed to Pirek, and she did a great job at replicating it. I'll also leave a link down below to her Ko-Fi or Coffee, however you say it, if you want to go and make a donation to her for her work on this also. And with that being said, let's get into a little bit of Mordecai gameplay. Now, I'm not going to show you the full skill tree for Mordecai because I want it to be a surprise, but there's a lot of things in here which are references to things that he had in Borderlands 1. Some skills are basically skills he had in Borderlands 1 but changed to be new as well, so he's got elements of the old skill. Like for example, in Borderlands 1, Mordecai had a skill called Trespass, and in the Mordecai mod in Borderlands 3, there is now a skill called Deadly Bypass, which now gives Mordecai increased critical hit damage, and the next shot fired after he swaps weapons will bypass enemy shields. Of course, we also have the corrosion augment for Talon, which I showed off briefly earlier. This is a direct reference to the scene from the Bloodwing fight in Borderlands 2, and let's talk about that for a second, because Bloodwing in Borderlands 1 had the Eridium artifacts of which you would equip, and then Bloodwing's element would change. Now obviously this isn't a thing in Borderlands 3, but what I instead opted to do was make elemental augments for the action skill instead, and that's exactly what I did. So now Talon has different augments, and all of them give it a unique element for its attacks. There's fire, there's corrosion, there is shock, and there is also the new radiation, which is in Borderlands 3 as well. And I'd like to think they're all relatively strong in their own ways. Also, just like in Borderlands 1, which was very important to do, I made sure that when you're throwing out Talon, it is actually throwing Talon out and not just doing the Sentinel deploy animation. So when you initially go to throw out Talon, it will literally throw Talon out. And also, just like in Borderlands 1, Talon has a very short duration, just like Bloodwing, but does a ton of damage. Now, I have tried to balance it as well as I could so that it's not too overpowered early game, but also not too strong in endgame. I wanted it to feel relatively good in both, but not too bad or too good. And hopefully I got the balance relatively close to that goal, but obviously it's not going to be perfect, and I'm okay with that. Like, again, like, this isn't supposed to be the most top tier, fully furbished, most perfect replacement mod out there. I just wanted to make something that was really fun and gave people something new to do in Borderlands 3, and I think I've achieved that, so I'm at least happy with that. That is also why my vision with the mod wasn't just to bring Mordecai from Borderlands 1 over, but to bring Mordecai into the game as if he were here right now in Borderlands 3 being played. I didn't want it to just feel like a one-to-one remaster. I wanted it to feel like a remake that was up to date with the time that we're in. But of course, if you want to see a one-to-one remaster of the Borderlands 1 Mordecai skill tree, then let me know in the comment section down below. And with that that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like on it. It really does help us out in the algorithm. And if you're not already subbed to the channel, please do that also. Let me know what you want to see us make next, and I'll check you all in the next one.